Good morning, everyone. Let's wait for a couple of more minutes for more stakeholders to join before we officially start with the online workshop. As announced earlier, for those who already joined, we will wait for a couple of more minutes for more attendees to join in before we give an official start to the online workshop. It's 4 minutes past, so I think we can already start. Welcome to the SDAC product methodology online workshop organized by the NEMO committee within the public consultation period for the SDAC product methodology. My name is Jovka Ivanova. I'm the NEMO committee reporting and communication task force leader, and will be assisting for today's online workshop. My colleagues from the technical task force, Chiara Vitelli and Christoforos Zoumas, who will present to you the details of today's presentation and the public consultation itself. Before we delve into the details, however, let's remind ourselves of the housekeeping rules. First of all, this online workshop is being recorded. The recording will be subsequently published on our YouTube channel. And all attendees have their cameras and microphones disabled. We have provided for a Q&A session, which will come at the end of the workshop. You can post your questions in the Q&A box that you can see on top, and we will address them during the Q&A session. And in the event that we are not able to address all your questions during the workshop today, we will make sure that we include the answers to them in the Q&A document that we are also going to publish on the website, along with the other materials that are related to the public consultation and are already there. And before I give the floor to Chiara and Christoforos, just a brief outline of the purpose and the structure of the workshop. As you might already be familiar, we are holding these public consultations for the different methodologies every 2 years in accordance with Article 12 of the CACM regulation. And we are also complying with the request of stakeholders to be more involved in the process related to the public consultation. Therefore, with this workshop, we aim at presenting you a detailed overview of the public consultation process and what the next steps are. Also to present to you the analysis that NIMOs have conducted behind their proposals for amendment of the current SDAC product methodology. And finally, last but not least, to address any questions that you may have in the dedicated session that will come at the end of the workshop. So, Chiara, over to you.
Many thanks, Jocka. So, just a small background, this SDAC product methodology, as you know, concerns the products and order types that can be taken into account when submitting sell and buy orders to the other market in accordance with Article 41 of CACM. And still in accordance with the same Article 40, paragraph 3, in order to ensure that these terms and conditions meet their objectives, NIMO shall consult market participants at least every 2 years in order to ensure that the available products reflect their needs. The current product methodology is in force since 2024 and has been approved by the ACER with decision number 13/2024. And now, in accordance with Article 12, as Jocka was saying, we are consulting on possible amendments of this SDAC product methodology. In particular, we have been requested in Article 7 of the enforced methodology to reassess the classification of SDAC products into mandatory and optional. And we have been requested to propose amendments in the next round of consultation, which is exactly this one. In order to reassess such classification, NIMOs has started a review of these mandatory and optional products and has conducted analysis on the usages of the products between the 1st of October 2025 and the 28th of February 2026, meaning in the first 5 months after the go live of 15 minutes MTU. Based on the analysis, we are now consulting the results of this analysis and the need for possible amendment of the SDAC product methodology. Why did we started our assessment looking at the usages of the products in the first 5 months after the go live of the 15 minutes MTU? First of all, because as you know, the level of usages of the different products is a key factor for the algorithm performance. And in particular, in case of performance degradation, if one of these usage goes above its own usage range, this could be a possible driver for the application of corrective measure. And second, because we should always find a balance between the market participant needs and the algorithm capability, and it must be taken into account for this product classification. So, having said that, let's see some results of this analysis we have conducted in the first 5 months after the go live of 15 minutes MTU. Here we reported the usage level for the different products which are supported by the algorithm. We have the QS order, the scalable complex order, the simple box order, and the so-called smart blocks that in the SDAC product methodology are called complex block orders. The QS order are quantified according with our indicators, as we do usually in the CSDM annual report, by the number of steps, which means the number of steps or interval which are included in aggregated cures which are submitted at bidding zone level. And what we see from this table is that the great majority of the order have been submitted in this period with at the MTU level, so with the 15 minutes granularity. Still, we have a significant share, we can say, of order submitted with the 60 minutes granularity. We started our analysis looking at the blocks order, and what we see is that the 27, around the 30% in terms of number and 20% in terms of volumes of blocks order are submitted with 60 minutes granularity. And here a question arises. We made explicit question in our questionnaire to you. We asked you which is your need for this 60 minutes block order. Do you think they are useful and for what purpose? We included this specific question in our questionnaire, so we invite you to give your feedback. From our point of view, what we did in order to assess the possible need of this 60 minutes block order had been to try to quantify the impact of these 60 minutes block orders on the performance of the algorithm. And to this end, we performed a specific simulation by converting 60 and 30 minutes block order into 50 minutes block orders, leaving all the rest unchanged. And what we concluded by this analysis is that the simulation show practically the same values. So both in terms of number of solutions found, time to first solution, average economic surplus per session, so as number of PRBs, before and after conversion, we observe pretty the same value. So based on this value, the NIMOS cannot draw any conclusion that converting 60 to 30 minutes block could improve the performance of the algorithm. And so for such reason, we do not propose any possible removal of this 60 minutes granularity block order. But yeah, now the floor is open also to your view. And for this reason, we also put a specific question regarding this argument in our questionnaire. The second topic we analyzed concerning the block orders is the so-called MAR parameter, the minimum acceptance ratio parameter. Why? Because in reasoning 39 of ESER decision 13/2024, we have been explicitly asked by ESER to reevaluate the mandatory character of this minimum acceptance ratio. We remind that the minimum acceptance ratio is a parameter which ranges between 0 and 1, and this is always under the control of the market participants. And this parameter is intended to make block orders more flexible in order to facilitate the underlying assets scheduling needs for minimum operational stability and also to help the algorithm to converge. What we see from the usages of the first 5 months after the go live of 15 minutes MTU is that the more than 70% of the submitted blocks are submitted with MAR equal 1, while the rest is submitted with MAR between 0 and 1. So we asked ourselves what could mean having a market without MAR. We see just two possibilities. Even one is forcing market participants to bid blocks always with MAR equal 1, or forcing market participants in bidding always with MAR equal 0. For both of the cases, we see possible adverse effect on the algorithm performance. First of all, if we force market participants in bidding with always with MAR equal 1, we would expect having a higher number of blocks with smaller volumes, possibly also submitted into linked families in order to mimic the behavior of block orders with MAR equal 1. On the contrary, what we see is that if we force market participants to bid with mar equals 0, we fear that the market participants would lose their ability to define in a consistent way their profile, which would reflect the operational scheduling needs of their assets. So from our point of view, the removal of these MAR parameters from block orders would restrict the ability of market participants to express their needs, and in the end could end up in an increase of blocks order, or both complex or simple blocks. And this, from our point of view, would only worsen the algorithm performance instead of improving the situation. And based on this consideration, we didn't recommend any change to the existing text of the methodology, explicitly referring to these MAR parameters. Also on this topic, we had a specific question in our questionnaire, so please provide also your view in this respect, and we will take it into account without the feedback of the public consultation. Then the other product that we have assessed more in depth are the period order, because once again, in ESEF decision 13/2024, the reasoning 39 asked us to reconsider this classification of period order as mandatory product, because from ESEF point of view, these period order do not constitute the most basic type of products in order to cover multiple MTU. And so also here we started our assessment based on the numbers of the usage level we observed in the first 5 months. And also for the curves, as for the blocks, the majority of the orders are submitted with the 15 minutes granularity. Still, we have the 12% in terms of numbers of steps and the 20% in terms of volumes behind these orders, which are submitted at the 60 minutes granularity. And here is our reasoning. So what would happen if we would invite market participants to bid into blocks instead of periods order, which is in the end the reason for classifying this as an optional product, and so to use the correction of periods order in case of the need of correcting measure. And we start our reasoning by noticing that in the last scalability scenario, in the last simulation we performed for the scalability assessment, the usage range of the blocks order, meaning the maximum level of block orders which are supported by the algorithm with a good performance level, is around 36,000. Now, considering the number of periods order and the total number of steps submitted with 60 minutes granularity in the first 5 months, if we take into account the 12% of this number of steps and we replace these steps by block orders, and from our point of view, this is still a conservative approach, because I remind you that these steps are aggregated at bidding zone level, so it could be higher, the number, in case we would not have aggregated this number of steps. If the number of steps I was saying would have been replaced by block orders, we would have observed an increase in blocks order in an average number per session around 109,000 of blocks, which is a huge increase in the number of blocks, which nowadays is around 800 per session. So based on this number, we would expect, and we must expect, an adverse effect in case of application of corrective measure applied to periods order. And the simplification of curves order would lead to a performance degradation instead of a relief of algorithm performance in case applied. And so these are our concluding remarks on this specific topic, because we think that this categorization between mandatory and optional products is only useful in case of application of corrective measures. So we should have among the optional products all the products that we would be able to correct in a feasible way in order to restore the algorithm performance. And we think that we already have some means and some tools to address performance degradation based on the instruments we already have in our hands, which are mitigation measures, but also the possibility of reducing or removing other optional products or reducing other TSO's requirements, ramping, and so on. So we think that the benefit of reducing or removing the 30 and 60 minutes period order based on the number we observed in the market. So this is not speculation, this is just analysis made on the number we observed. This expected benefit would be either very small or most probably very negative. And so we think that in case of reduction of usages of 30 and 60 minutes periods order, we would end up with an increase of simple blocks order or possibly also complex block orders. And this could bring an adverse effect to the performance of the algorithm. And so based on this reasoning, we think that categorizing 30 and 60 minutes period order as optional products is not necessary or fit for purpose. And we already have in our hands the correct tool to address in case it would happen any possible performance degradation. And all this reasoning, once again, has been based on the analysis of what we observed on the market in the first 5 months after the go live of 15 minutes MTU. Of course, the analysis could change in time, but in this moment, we do not recommend any change to the text of the algorithm of the SDAC product methodology because we see more adverse effect instead of useful tool in case we do that. But this was our point of view. So now I would ask you if you have any specific question. I do not know. I asked my colleagues if they collect any question during this first introduction.
Not yet. We're looking forward to receiving some.
Okay. So if you have any question, just draft it in the Q&A box. And we try to answer right now, or in case we need more, let's say, alignment among us, we will publish the answer to any question in an anonymized way in the NEMO committee website page for the public consultation. Just wait 1 minute more and
let's give some time, Chiara. Maybe somebody wants to type down the question.
Yeah. Okay, I see one question from Lorenzo.
It's me. Okay, the first arrived. So could the list of mandatory products be extended in the future to linked bids and exclusive bids with investments in Euphemia?
Well, if I may provide some reflection on this, well, the concept of mandatory and optional products is coming not from the capacity of the algorithm to support specific order types. Of course, algorithm can support all the order types which are available, but it's coming from the legal requirements of products used. So according to CACM, the minimum kind of orders that we can use are orders linked to single MTU or orders linking multiple MTUs. So to this extent, we consider the simplest, let's say, order types that could be available there to provide this kind of a legal requirement. So you have the curve orders and you have the block orders, which are linking one single MTU or multiple MTUs. For sure, all the order types which are included, and especially The complex order types, which are currently under the optional framework, they are always defined and always pre-tested, okay, for each one of the NEMO trading hubs with specific product usages, envisaged product usages, and actual product usages under historical data and the future expansion. So currently, we are using this framework on the optional and mandatory products. Of course, we need at the end to keep a balance between the products which are being provided and are focusing on having at least the minimum requirements of the algo methodology and CACM, but also have some kind of flexibility when we will need to apply, possibly to apply corrective measures. So we were always trying to create short or mid-term and even forward-term R&D to include and to improve euphemia. But currently, we cannot guarantee that we can include the kind of optional products which are providing already and by evidence more complexity to the algorithm to mandatory products. Thank you.
We have another question posted. If the methodology would be changed that 30-minute and 60-minute period orders are optional and not mandatory, does this mean that NEMOs will remove them and market participants would not be able to use them anymore?
No, this is not the case. This is not the case. As I said before, the products are supported by the algorithm, the order types are supported by the algorithm. So as Chiara already said during the presentation, what finally will be the option is that these products and these order types, which are now being used for 30 and 60 minutes, the period orders will be classified as optional and will be candidates for possible application of corrective measures. But at the end, as already been stated, applying corrective measures with this kind of products will provide minimum or zero performance improvement in the case we select them for corrective measures. I don't know if Chiara would like to add something also on this.
Yeah, this is exactly the point, because we think that this distinction among mandatory and optional makes sense in light of these corrective measures. So we are saying the algorithm must support at least these basic products which are directly linked with the legal requirements in CCM. And in case we have any problem, the more complex products that are still supported by the algorithm with good performance are ready today. So we do not have to expect future algorithm release, because we are already, the algorithm supports all this, also the optional product with good performance. But in case we would face any performance degradation, we would end up in a situation in which we are forced to correct this optional product. What we see in our analysis is that classifying cures order, periods order, the cures order with 30 and 60 minutes as a mandatory product, as an optional product, would not give any leverage in order to help the algorithm to converge. Instead, we see counterintuitive effect, and in case this periods order would have been converted into periods order, because this is the into blocks order, because this is the message. The block orders are basic one, periods order are not basic one. In case of corrective measure, we could correct periods order. So this message is misleading, because would end up with worsening the algorithm performance instead of alleviating the issue. So for this reason, we do not recommend to move them into the optional section of the methodology. But in any case, we are not planning to remove them. Also because, as I said, we would end up in a worse situation in performance terms.
No new questions, but maybe we can wait for a minute or two more to see if more questions arrive. Seems like we have no more, at least for the time being.
Okay, so I will proceed with the last slide, and these are the next steps of this process. As you know, the public consultation started on the 18th of May. Together with the explanatory note, our reasoning and our proposal, we also published a specific questionnaire for the market participants. So apart from your free thought, as always, you can also answer to this specific question to give us your feedback and your views on the specific points we tackled in our analysis. And all this feedback can be sent to the NIMO Committee Secretariat email, as usual. The public consultation would end in the 18th of June, and we expect to process all the results by end of June. And with the public consultation results, together with this Q&A document and the recording of the video, we will publish all this material to our NIMO Committee website. And the final proposal of the methodology for ESER should be submitted by mid-July. So this is the ongoing process. This was our, let's say, point of view. We are waiting to listen your point of view, both in terms of feedback and answer to the questionnaire. And so, yeah, we'll keep in touch and we will upload as soon as possible all the results on the NIMO Committee website as soon as the public consultation will be ended. I don't know if my colleagues want to say something else. Otherwise, I thank you for participating today and take care.
I would also like to thank all attendees for joining the webinar today. We'll keep you posted. You can follow also our LinkedIn page for further updates, and the public consultation page is already there, so you may refer to the materials published there. Thanks a lot once again. Enjoy the rest of the day, and we look forward to welcoming you to our future webinars and events.
Thank you, Kafka.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.